Moving on from broadcasting to the recording industry, another type of the license for the musical compositions is the mechanical license. Now, mechanical license is a compulsory license required in order to record a musical composition and to publicly distribute that recording. Statutory rate for this license is currently 9.1 cents per song per copy distributed. Being compulsory, this license cannot be refused if the statutory rate is paid, with one exception. The Copyright Act provides that the owner of the musical works, which means a musical composition, right, has the right to determine if the composition will be initially recorded and publicly distributed as such, and if so, to grant the license to the entity of his or her choosing. After the musical work has been initially recorded and publicly distributed, this license cannot be refused anymore if the statutory rate is paid. Now, ordinarily, a record label requests this license from a music publisher in order to record a music composition owned by the publisher. To simplify and streamline the process of mechanical licensing, a nationwide agency set up as a clearinghouse for mechanical licenses called Harry Fox Agency, which has authorization to administer this license on behalf of most of the US-based publishers and authors at the statutory rate. So, just like the PROs are authorized to administer the performance rights licenses, Harry Fox Agency is authorized to administer the mechanical licenses, forwarding the payments to the publishers while keeping a percentage for the operating expenses. It should be noted, though, that while most of the performance rights licenses are obtainable only through the PROs, the mechanical licenses can, and often are, obtained directly from the publishers for less than the statutory rate of 9.1 cents per copy distributed, meaning that record labels and producers often negotiate this license with publishers in order to receive more favorable licensing rate. The license somewhat related to the mechanical license is the musical work sampling license. Now, musical work sampling license is a non-compulsory license required in order to use any portion of a musical composition as the basis for a sound sample utilized in a sound recording. If a producer takes however small portion of a copyrighted musical composition, records it, and edits it so it becomes a part of a recorded song as a loop or as a one-shot segment, that requires the musical work sampling license. Also, if a producer takes however small portion of a pre-existing recording of a copyrighted musical composition and edits it so it becomes a part of a recorded song, also as a loop or as a one-shot segment, or in any other way, that too requires the musical works sampling license, plus the master use license, which we will discuss later in the course when we talk about the recording industry itself. See, the musical work sampling license is payable by the record producers and record labels directly to the publishers. The license is not mandatory and the rate is freely negotiated. The license seemingly related to the public performance license we spoke about earlier, but in fact very different in nature, is the transcription license, or the electrical transcription license as it is sometimes called. The transcription license is a non-compulsory license required in order to use a musical work as a background music in businesses, public buildings, spaces, and transport, or in radio broadcasts. Seems like that was covered by the public performance license, but it really refers to something else. See, it refers to licensing the musical compositions that producers want to use to record the background music to be played in the businesses, public places, and transport, or as a part of a radio show or a radio commercial. It refers to the compositions the producers want to transcribe, to record for such use, thus the transcription license name. So this license is really a type of a mechanical license, allowing the licensee to record the composition, just not intended for duplication and sale of the copies of the recording, but for a limited type of public performance or radio broadcasting. Now, since the intended use includes a form of a public performance. The public performance license is sometimes contained in its scope and sometimes it's not. If it's not included, then the public performance license must be obtained from the relevant PRO before the public performance of the material. The transcription license is payable by the background music companies, in-flight entertainment productions, radio program producers, etc., directly to the publishers. And as we said, the license is not mandatory and the rate is freely negotiated. The license actually related to the performance license, but administered differently, is the jukebox license. See, the jukebox license is a negotiated type of a public performance license, and as such is controlled by the performing rights consent decrees like all the other performance rights licenses. It is administered and managed by the Jukebox License Office, or JLO, on behalf of the PROs and the Amusement and Music Operators Association, AMOA. This license is payable by the jukebox operator to the JLO and then collected by the PROs and distributed to their authors and publishers. The license rates are not statutory and are negotiated between the PROs and the AMOA according to the guidelines set in the current performing rights consent decrees. Now, the next music license in line is the synchronization license. Synchronization license is a non-compulsory license required in order to use a musical composition in a motion picture, a video, or in a television-based work. It is payable by the audiovisual works producers directly to the publishers. Now, this license is not mandatory and the rates are freely negotiated. Upon receiving the license, the producers can then record the composition in question and place it in their movie, video, or television production. Now, this license does not include an existing recording of a song, but only a composition to be recorded by the licensee for the use in an audiovisual production. To use an already existing recording of a song in the same context requires an additional license, which we will cover later in the course when we talk about the recording industry. Also, the synchronization license does not include any form of the broadcasting of the audiovisual production, which is licensed separately through the public performance rights license we spoke about earlier. Nor does it include duplication in tapes or DVDs. Such duplication is covered by the video reproduction license. Now, video reproduction license is another non-compulsory license required in order to reproduce and distribute to the public the videotapes or discs that contain copyrighted musical works. This license is sometimes negotiated as part of the synchronization license. Like the synchronization license, it is payable by the audio-visual works producers directly to the publishers. This license is not mandatory and the rates are freely negotiated. Now, the license that is often just a form of a synchronization license is the special use license. The special use license is a non-compulsory license required in order to use a musical work in various merchandising tie-ins and in a wide range of products, including video games, television commercials, in which case this license becomes, as we said, a type of a synchronization license, allowing a licensee to record a musical composition for the use in video games or television commercials. This license is payable by the product's producers directly to the publishers. License is not mandatory and the rates are negotiable. And finally, we will conclude our list of the musical works licenses with the so-called derivative license. Now, derivative license is a non-compulsory license required in order to make a derivative version of the original musical work, often referred to as an arrangement, right? This license is only required if the new arrangement is substantially different from the original work. It is payable by the arrangers or the recording artist or their record labels directly to the publishers. The license is not mandatory and the rate is negotiable.